today at the viewing of Process and Reprocess presented by the Front Room Gallery. We will be speaking with Joanne Ungar and Jaynie Crimmins regarding their process and their inspiration. And we also have today Daniel Aycock, who will be touring the exhibition with us and navigating through the show. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. What we're viewing here is a digital twin of the Front Room Gallery. This is the exhibition entitled Process and Reprocess, featuring the works of Joanne Ungar and Jaynie Crimmins. So here we have a full view of the exhibition. And I'm just really happy that everybody's able to join us today. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to view this exhibition together, across the globe. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. What we have here is an overall view of the show. And we're just going to enter in and look at the two pieces on the main wall of the exhibition that are pairing of Joanne and Jaynie's work together. And the titles of these two pieces are Joanne's piece on the left, which is Acorn. And then the right piece is Jaynie Crimmins, which is titled In Search of Beauty. And this is kind of a nice place to start because we were talking about this, and this was really, for both artists, a very new way of working. So I thought that this is kind of fun to see where they currently are within their own processes. And that's a lot of the things that we are also going to be talking about today is process. Maybe Joanne, you can just describe for people just physically, what are we looking at? What are the materials that you're using in your work here?
This is encaustic, which is it's a centuries old wax recipe for working with wax and with a organic resin mixed into it. And in addition to working with the wax or encaustic, I use the two words interchangeably, it's a found object. It's a cardboard object. And I do this a lot. This, you're looking at it technically upside down. If you look at the little curlicue at the very bottom of the piece, that hangs on a pole in a store. And in each of the slits, in what maybe we will call each ovary, would be a slipper. This is a sales tool for acorn slippers, hence the name Acorn. And it's a departure for me because rather than depending on the corrugation and folds of cardboard boxes, I'm using other marketing detritus. And most of the pieces in the show that you'll see will have some sort of die cutting. And what I mean by die cutting, I have a visual aid here, is cardboard that has holes cut out of it or shapes cut out of it. This is a box for menorah candles for my Jewish friends. So a lot of the pieces, you'll see these additional shapes cut out. That's it.
Fantastic. Well, we're definitely going to get more into the process. I just wanted to kind of, as an introduction, have you describe physically what we're seeing, because you use like a wood panel and then you're laminating these die-cut cardboard or paper cutouts to it with a pigmented wax, and in this case, it's an encaustic.
Although lamination is probably technically what I'm doing, I've started over the last year or two, I've started in my head, I always jump to using the word embalm. I feel like I'm embalming objects for preservation.
It is a way of preserving the material, right? I mean, in wax, that was one of the earliest preservation methods.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you use that term for that.
Yeah. And the Egyptians did use encaustics. They're the ones who developed it, and that's how they painted their I know mummies isn't the right word. Sarcophagi, is that the right word?
Mm-hmm.
Also, I forgot to tell you guys that I have pigmented the wax. and also painted the cardboard. And that's where the color aspect comes in. It's not just cardboard and wax. There's a lot of pigment in there also.
Yeah, beautiful color use for those too.
Yes, and they work so well with Jaynie's piece.
Exactly.
How was that for
and
a
that's what was so
segue?
exciting about this pairing is just looking at these color relationships internally in your work and then comparatively between the two. So Jaynie, maybe you could describe just in kind of broad strokes for people what this material is that you're using to make these constructions.
Okay, well, first I actually start with just catalogs. They're printed with metallic inks, so they don't really decompose if they are recycled. And I feel like I'm keeping them out of the waste stream. And also the other thing I use in my work is security envelopes. I don't know if everybody can see that.
Move it a little bit
Oh,
over.
over there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I didn't hold the catalog up enough, but so I shred all of these things, and basically this is the size of the shred. It's very small. And my source materials come from marketing tools, which is very similar to what Joanne uses as far as her materials that she begins her process with. And they're difficult to recycle, and also they promote the constructs of beauty, wealth, and taste, which then I deconstruct and try to create my own narratives from that. And I'm just going to pick up what happens when I, this is the size of the shred rolled up that I actually work with. And I also create different sewn, I don't know if you can see it, sewn.
Hold that one up again for a little bit longer so we can really see that.
These
Yeah.
are sewn together and folded and sewn. So these are folded. The first shred I showed you was rolled, and then these are also sewn. I don't know. And so it's a very meditative, laborious practice.
So maybe in this case, because you are showing this really tiny components, maybe you could hold this up one more time for everybody, Jaynie.
Okay, so
They could see.
so
Yeah.
the shred is pretty small. I use a diamond cut shredder, which they don't make anymore. So I bought every one of them off of eBay. And then
eBay's the best friend, right?
and then this is, I don't know, I'm trying to show the size of the shred. I have to use a tweezer to place each little rolled shred. And then I also fold. Can you see that? Fold and stick the shreds together. And then I use the shreds whole and sew them together as well.
Yeah.
And the color is all from the catalog, right?
Yes, I don't use paint. I make all these rules for myself. The rules are like, you have to use exactly what you get. You can't change anything, no paint. It's just, the materials are just bare bones, and that's what I use. And my armatures are from various different sources, like the first image that Kate and Daniel showed. First of all, I want to thank you both for inviting me to show with you guys. I'm very honored, so thank you. And it's an honor to show with Joanne Ungar, because I am a collector of her work, actually. So, I used for the In Search of Beauty series that we're going to look at, I used actual architectural details that I purchased. And for the A Field Guide to Getting Lost series, I used different forms that I found and were not manufactured in the same way.
Great. So, okay, so now we're going to re-enter the exhibition. And so what happens now when we do this is that your windows, both Joanne and Jaynie, will still be speaking. And for people to be able to see you, You just have to move your upper arrow to the left or right until you find them. They're both on spotlight, so that they should come up first. But now we're going to go back into the gallery. So here we are again, and hopefully you can also still see me here, Kathleen Vance, and Joanne Ungar and Jaynie Crimmins to your right screen. So now we're back in the exhibition, and we just talked a little bit about these two pieces that are hung together, Acorn and In Search of Beauty. And now we thought that it'd be nice to take everybody over to the left to the blue wall, which is installed to have two groupings, one of Joanne's work and one really nice installation of Jaynie's pieces. So, for people that are joining us, if you could just make sure that your microphone is off, and that way we won't have other audio coming in. We can just hear Joanne and Jaynie. So the left grouping is Joanne Ungar's works there, and there's of the 5 components, 5 pieces there, we have Satellite, Cord Doodads, Sally Hansen Complete Salon Manicure, Premier Zeus #1, and OG Hydroganics. Right, John? So Joanne, tell us, how do you come up with these titles for these pieces?
Each of these pieces has a cardboard box embedded or embalmed within it. And I paint the box, but the title of the piece is lifted from the box. So whatever product the box held, that's the name of the piece. And I'd like to shout out to Larry and John, who are the new owners of Sally Hansen Complete Beauty.
Lovely.
Yeah, and also Kate, thank you. The colors look great. You did a really good job in setting this all up.
Wonderful. I'm really glad. We had a lot of difficulties trying to get the color accuracy for this exhibition tour. Sometimes it's an easy capture and we're able to do these and the color comes out correctly. But I think that because there's such a sensitivity in the color usage, both for Joanne and Jaynie, that it was really tricky to do this. But I think that also, yeah, it did turn out nicely. We do have a comment here from Karen Margolis, who says the show looks so beautiful. Both artists' works look so amazing together. So thank you, Karen. So we were thinking when we did a preview tour that it might be nice to get up close to these, right, Joanne?
Yeah. There's a couple of this particular grouping showcases a few of the newer techniques that I'm using. And since it's a show about process, I'm very comfortable in talking about what's going on here. If you could start with the doodads one, Daniel, that one. I mentioned earlier that I was working with die cutting, cardboard that had die cuts. And this may look like it's got some dark blue blobs in it, but they're not dark blue blobs. They are little holes that are cut out of the packaging in funny little shapes. It was packaging to hold, you know, when you get earbuds and they give you all different sizes of sleeves or condoms to put over the buds to put in your ear. This was a little package of those things. And all those little holes were holding the doodads.
No. These shirts I bought.
Right.
And if you could go to the side view of the satellite one, Daniel, just to its left.
Daniel?
Yes.
She wants to go to the side.
Okay. Hold on a second. Which way?
To the sides view.
The side view.
You
Oh,
mean
yeah.
to go to look on
I know
the,
what she's talking about.
Yeah,
We also have a comment here from Beth Derry who says, agreed, these are like gorgeous time capsules. So Beth Derry is another artist that we work with at the front room, and you can look through the archives and see a tour like this of her work as well. Yeah, so this is a good view, right, Joanne?
Yeah, is it possible to get closer?
That's as close as we can get.
Okay. If you look along the edge of the piece on the left, can you point? Yeah, right there. That's what I want y'all to see. On one of the techniques that I've used in a number of the pieces in this show is I've used a router and I've sculpted the wood panel before I poured wax into it. You can see, they look like little notches, but that's really just sort of the cross view? No, what's the word?
Side view.
Yeah, it's the side view of it's an elevation view of what I've done to the panel. And if we look from the front now, Daniel, you can see it's not overwhelmingly obvious. It's pretty subtle, but you'll see like waviness and suggestion of sandy beach, maybe with organic wave patterns in it. Can you go down, Daniel?
I thought she was talking about.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Oh, right there. Yes.
That effect is caused by the sculpting of the base. What we're actually seeing is different layers, different depths of wax. So the deeper it is, the less opaque, the less transparent it is. And the shallower it is, the more transparent it is. And then, of course, as usual, I've painted the cardboard that's laid on top of it. So you're seeing several different things happening all at once. And true to my commitment to die cutting, you can see the cardboard has lots of stuff cut out of it, including one gorgeous little hole in the very center.
Yeah.
And another thing that you're seeing here, you can zoom out a little, Daniel, to see the whole group, is something that Kate and I have been playing around with a lot, which is having works set up in these grids, Swiss grids, if I think that's the proper term, where different pieces have conversations with each other. In the past, it's always been just one piece on a white wall, but moving forward, especially, and starting now, I'm interested in how these works talk to each other. Like if you look at the top two, it looks as if the orange panel in Sally Hansen on the right is talking to the orange panels and the piece on the left. And ditto for the pale orange on the bottom. And because I'm using these die cut shapes, I have more variables of geometries to talk to each other in these constellations. And you'll see more of this as we move throughout the show.
Yeah, definitely coming up into the larger installation.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about the geometry of the forms that are created within the works, and then that makes a determination of the size of the panel, correct?
That's right. That's right. I forgot. I have another visual aid here. It's just a little one, but here is a. Let me see. This was a Clinique box.
Yeah. Why don't we go out so we can see you up close?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if you could see, but it's been painted. This was a box for a Clinique product. And what I did was I flipped it over and I painted one side of it. And this is very typical of what's inside each of my pieces. And after I get a painted cardboard piece that I like, I take some plywood and I cut it to size. This one hasn't quite been cut to size,
It's close.
but the size of the panel is dictated by the box. So I would cut it right down the edge here. And that's why all my work is such odd shapes and not standard sizes of paintings, much to Daniel's chagrin. He always wants, why don't you just make standard sizes?
But it makes it a more complex.
It does.
Work.
It does.
I think that answers. So Jaynie Bardo was asking, how do you get the gradation of colors on the cardboard? Does that come from the pigment in the wax, or do you paint them that way? So I think that was a really great visual aid to answer.
I have another one. This was a prescription for something or other, something nasty, I'm sure. And there's another painted box, and Janine, the answer is spray bottles.
Sometimes aerosol spray, right?
Yeah, I'm moving away because in the past, probably this was done with spray paint, but I'm moving away from, I'm trying to move completely away from toxic materials, and I'm now mixing pigments and inks in aerosol spray bottles and spraying that way instead of aerosol spray paints, just for the benefit of the environment and also my own set of lungs.
Well, Jaynie writes, those are beautiful too. We have another question coming in from Karen Schifano, who says, Joanne, do you think about creating light that seems to emanate from the work? There are light lines that might be the edges and be embedded in the wax. So I think that she's referring to the folds, right?
Yeah. Karen, I love that it appears that light is emanating from my work, but that's not what I would focus on when I'm making it. In order to create that effect though, when I paint a box, I paint it in a very special way so that the geometry and the folds of the box are gonna pop.
And also the way that it's open, and when you tear it, that kind of like the affected. So that's what's causing that, right?
Yeah, you can see right here, this area on the bottom. That's from when the top layer of the cardboard has been ripped off, which often happens because the boxes are glued together.
Yeah.
So over
it's like a soft geometry, right? When you do that.
Yeah.
So let's go back in and just to keep us on track with time, we'll look one more time at your grouping, and then we're going to move over to Jaynie's trio of pieces to the right. And these three, Jaynie has the title of In Search of Beauty. And these are number 7, number 9, and number 11 from that series. I really love the different way of working between Joanne's layering and Jaynie's layering of material, and very different processes and different handling of the materials. So Jaynie, and the way you showed us earlier, the rolled paper that becomes almost like a beading process there. So maybe you can talk us more about, to me, I imagine it's kind of a meditative process in creating these. Is that the case?
It is a meditative process, but it also reflects the domestic work of women in the past, or maybe even now. And so I always think of myself as going back in the past in a way when I'm making my work, but also bringing myself into the present by, this process of being very meditative and quiet. And, Joanne focused a lot about process, but I feel like I could focus more on the reprocess part of it, because I start with these, solicitations that are all annoying for all of us. And I start with the catalogs, and I start with security envelopes, and I just shred everything. And that for me breaks down the meaning and the thrust of what we are supposed to be interested in as far as marketing. And I just feel like the repurposing of these materials gives it a different life, and I can create my own narratives about what I want. And basically, the whole idea of In Search of Beauty was to deconstruct what we are sold as beauty, wealth, and taste, and to make my own narratives about what I think beauty is. And that's why In Search of Beauty was really very important to me, because it just took what we are fed and took all that information, and then I deconstructed it all. I dismantled what I felt like we were being pushed, what was pushed onto us, and I created my own story from it. So that's my reprocessing of what we are fed as consumers.
And you've created beautiful objects from those, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. We have a question coming in from Jaynie. Hold on. Yes, from Jaynie.
Right around here. Yeah, it's
Jaynie,
coming up.
this is coming in from Jaynie Bordeaux. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Jaynie, do the patterns come organically, or do you have a pattern in mind when you set the rolled and sewn paper?
Good question, Janine. On these, I actually bought pre-formed forms, but just like with my work that I start from scratch and I use found objects or different armatures, I always draw something and then I ignore it. Well, it was the same thing with these. I purchased things and then I ignored what was actually happening on them. I don't know why I did that, but that's what I did. And the patterns actually come from natural objects and architectural details and geometric patterns and patterns that are, that are part of my daily life. I walk all over the place in New York City, and, so many different things, architectural details, manhole covers or person hole covers, if you will. And I just feel like
That's Jaynie, be inclusive. Love it.
it's just, all different applications of design just seep into my being, and then I go back to my studio and there they are. So that's really where they come from. Thank you for asking.
And Beth Derry comments that it's stunning. And Joanne Ungar has a very interesting question. She says, is In Search of Beauty a book? Is it a book?
It is not a book. It's my journey. It could be a book, but
It could be a book, right? It could be a good title for a book.
Is it driving? I think so.
I thought you were referencing something else.
Should I go slower down? Maybe. Okay.
I'm sorry. I just want to remind everybody, I'm not able to turn
big
your
in here.
microphones
I got a
off.
bunch of big ones yesterday.
Your microphone is on besides Joanne and Jaynie. Could you just make sure that it's turned off? Because we're picking up some background noise that's interrupting our ability to hear very well, Joanne and Jaynie. So I'm sorry. Okay, but that does bring up an interesting question too, is you're using, in this case, restoration hardware catalogs for these?
not in this series. In this series, I'm using various catalogs. Like it could be a MoMA catalog, it could be a travel catalog. In Search of Beauty was using more marketing, like diverse marketing tools, where the brown work is all restoration hardware.
Okay. I guess that makes sense because of the color in
Yes.
these, right? That beautiful blue and the bright colors in the center there. I'm gonna see if we can see it from a little bit of a different angle. Daniel just stepped away for a moment. So I'm gonna be the one navigating. So excuse my skills here. There. Maybe he had it better before. But yeah, you can kind of see the volume, the relief of these from the side view. that it's not just the flat to the wall construction that you're doing, that there is like a nice volume as you're building to them. Shall we continue around to Joanne Ungar's main installation in the exhibition? For both Jaynie and Joanne, it was a kind of nice and fun exhibition to put together because each artist got the ability to do one larger, wall installation with the modular units from individual works. So in this case, it was really fun to work with the colors in Joanne's work to get this kind of gradation moving through. And here you can see the different varieties of the compositions that are made from the packaging material, as well as some insertion of more collage-based works, right, Joanne?
Yeah, yeah. There's two pieces in here. They're both in the top row, one on the far right and one second to the left, that have collaged elements in them instead of just packaging. And it's different for what you've probably seen, but it's very natural for me because I've always done collaging, and in my own head, what I'm doing with the wax in the boxes is a form of collage. So the one in the top left, I just took it a little further with a bit of drawing and paper. The other thing that you can see here is can you go to the horizontal one on the top row, Kate?
Yeah, Daniel's back, so.
Oh, Daniel. Yeah, that one. This is another example of, again, something new, but you can see more clearly here how I've manipulated the surface of the wood. This doesn't have any cardboard in it. This is just etched out wood panel. I use a router and pigmented wax. And I've also painted the wood.
And then this one has a really great title of Ant Path.
Yeah,
For it. So it just makes you think of like an ant colony.
it does. It does.
And yeah.
And
Caroline writes, very exciting to see the collage, Joanne. I love it.
thank you.
So
Moving forward in my work, we'll probably see more at relief bases. What I mean is, instead of simply using a plain wood base, I'm going to be cutting into the wood in different ways. Still under exploration, but I'm moving forward that way. Also, the piece on the top right is another example of a relief base where the base has been etched in. The black lines are painted wood, and where the wood was etched away, it's filled with yellow wax. And that's sort of how you can define the yellow and black stripes. And then there's a painted box on top of it. And I'm sorry, the photography in this particular instance on this piece isn't doing it justice. If you look at it in the main show, there's a lot more detail and it's not quite as rugged as it looks here. Also, again, you can see there's some die cutting on the box, giving me that circle in the top right, which I really like a lot. Really into these quirky die cutting holes and spaces. And it's not always visible, but nearly every piece in this exhibit has some sort of die cutting involved in it.
yeah, really amazing shapes. I like the kind of diptych piece down below, the bottom right.
Yeah, that actually is a diptych. And sometimes after I've been working on a piece, I can't remember what the cardboard is originally from. And that is the case here with this diptych. So I titled it Seatbelt because it reminds me of the clicky things that you put together to tuck yourself into a seatbelt. Not an overly intellectual title, I know, but that's what I think of. And if you go just to the left a little bit, the green and yellow vertical piece is one of my personal favorites. That is, again, you can see lots of die cut shapes in there. And that is packaging from a water bottle. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
top circle was hanging around the mouth of the bottle. And you can see the little holes below it that were used to hang on the rod in the store. But I just love the composition and detail that I got from this particular piece of marketing detritus.
And Beth Jerry's asking, is this a single piece? I assume that she's referring to the entire installation. So we did install this with the hope, that the one person would come and buy all of the pieces together, but they really are kind of conceived as individual works. And then for anybody that is interested, we would work with you to, if you had selected pieces that you were interested in purchasing, that we would work together, myself and Joanne, to do the composition that would work together with the pieces. Right, Joanne?
That's correct. And also moving forward, I'm going to start creating work with multiples in mind. Using similar sizes, shapes, colors, packaging, so that it'll be a different type of grouping.
Right. And John Weiss just wrote, he says, apologies, but we need to jump off. So glad we got to see these pieces in person earlier this month, and thrilled that we have some of Joanne's work hanging on our walls now. So
Thank you, John.
yeah. But that's what's so fun about these pieces, is that each one is an individual work, but they also have a really nice communication between one another, and you can do kind of pairings and trios and five-piece installations and really have fun with them. So now we are going to move across the gallery to look at Jaynie's installation. Let's see if I can get to a good point here to view it overall. Maybe here. It's good. Yeah. Oops. So Jaynie, can you tell us more about this larger installation, and maybe some more of the concepts that you're thinking about when you were developing it?
This series is called A Field Guide to Getting Lost, and this is based on a book by Rebecca Solnit.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and Rebecca Solnit has studied psychogeography, which I'm not an expert on, but basically what she had inspired me to do was to shut off my phone, all my navigation tools and everything, and just wander. And so all of these forms are based on me wandering through Central Park, wandering through the streets of New York, and just absorbing whatever I did. And then for some reason, I chose the Restoration Hardware catalogs, and they used to be on Broadway near Union Square. And I went in and the security guard let me take a whole bunch of them. And that's how I created this series.
Nice.
And because I haven't bought from them in a very long time because I find them very expensive. So I didn't receive their catalogs myself. But anyway, when Joanne was talking about feeling like she creates collages and she's working on reliefs, that's very, very close to what I believe that I'm doing. I mean, obviously my work is a relief, it's raised, but I do feel like I'm a collage artist because I am gluing paper to a substrate. So I feel like in so many ways our works overlap by using, found marketing materials or packaging materials and calling ourselves collage artists and, manipulating materials in a way that are really different from their source material. And I do miss my old studio because I was near Joanne, and I have a kind of funny story about Restoration Hardware. She was making a collage and she was in the middle of it, and I knew immediately that one of the pieces of her collage was from Restoration Hardware, and she was able to find the page in the catalog to add to that image, and I just thought that was perfect.
True story. This really happened.
So I really miss you, Joanne. I miss those moments so much. And I don't know what else to say about a field guide to getting lost, except that it took a year. I spent a year working on all of these pieces. It takes me a very long time to create these works because of the small materials that I'm working with, but it was a year of absolute pleasure not being connected to my phone. So that was pretty wonderful.
I love that. Maybe we can look at it a little bit from the side, because what I think is interesting in this too is the construction, the volume of them, and we had discussed this a little bit too, is that some of the forms really do seem like they're like almost like tribal forms for them. And I don't know if you wanted to just speak to that at all, Jaynie.
So many people have said that they felt tribal to them. I think part of it is the palette. It's just, because they're very earthy feeling and very natural feeling. And I mean, some of the forms are, if you could move to a little bit, what is that, to the left? I don't know. There's a form that's like this flower form that, I walked through parks, I walked through gardens in the parks, and just all of these forms really spoke to me. And I never thought about them having a connection to another culture or anything, but they seem to. So I don't know what that says. Maybe it is because I didn't pick up my phone when I was doing all of this stuff. I'm not sure.
Well, Patty says that she loves that book so much, and it is a really interesting reference to that. I think that that we should all take a moment, take a little time and disconnect from our geolocating, right? Karen writes, Jaynie, I think you have tapped into the collective unconscious of symbolism.
Whoa, thank you,
Very
Karen.
nice comment. Joanne Ungar says they're so beautiful, Joanne.
They are, especially up close when you can see all the texture.
She also says that's what Karen says. So yeah, that's a very nice comment of Karen, that you've tapped into the collective unconscious of symbolism.
I think that's beautiful. Thank you very much, Karen.
Yeah. So let's now, unless you have any other thing you'd like to add while we're viewing this, why don't we go down to the end cap wall, or the back wall, Daniel, where again we have a really nice pairing of Joanne and Jaynie's work, and you can see, that the colors that you both use they're really, well, this is, you have to step back maybe. They're really unique to each piece. When the field guide to getting lost, because you were using this Restoration Hardware catalogs, they were kind of more browns and more neutral colors. But then going here, there this like a violet, a lavender, and a blue in Jaynie's work. So we were able to select with pairing with Joanne's, kind of color pickups to make like a really nice conversation.
Yeah, I think the color conversation is really interesting here.
Mm-hmm.
Especially how the green fits in, even though Jaynie hasn't used any green. Have you?
Not in these pieces, no.
Yeah, no, it's a really nice pairing, and I love the echoing of shapes. The circle die cut hole in mine, and then the circle in the center of Jaynie's, and the little ones all around it.
And even like I am using it as a diamond, but the squares really reflect the squares in your work, especially in the more magenta one.
Yeah. Another, in the magenta one on the left, it's an example of something else I've been experimenting with that's new in this body of work, which is pigment dispersal. In the past, I've always worked with flat fields of color and been very careful to make sure that my pigments were seamless and almost slick. But lately I'm into when the pigment either doesn't dissolve all the way or gets picked up from the surface below and gets moved around in the waves of hot wax. And that purpley pinkish one is a good example of that. It's just yet another element I'm mixing in. I'm like Jaynie, I make these rules for myself. It's got to be cardboard box, it's got to be wax, the size has to be the size of the box. So it's fun to find different ways to create variety and content.
It's interesting also that I feel like both of us only follow our own rules and nobody else.
Absolutely.
I love that. Patty writes, such a great pairing, both visually and thematically. So that's a nice comment from
Hi, Patty.
Patty Fabricant. So we have one more wall of works to look at. And again, it was like a very interesting thing for us to think about the communication between your two works, texturally and in color. They're both abstract works, but in some ways definitely dealing with pattern and geometry and symmetry. So in Jaynie's works are most of the time very symmetrical in the patterning, right, Jaynie?
Most of the time, yes.
And so in this case, the die cut form of Joanne's does have compositionally symmetry to it, but there's quite a big gradient variance in the coloration there.
Yeah, and it's not fully symmetrical. It is left to right, but not top to bottom, which I like a lot. And also, this is another example of me playing around with pigment dispersion. And again,
I think like that piece is just breathing. It's so alive, Joanne. It's beautiful.
thank you. I love the two of them together. The way the purples and the teal blues sort of talk to each other. It's a really good pairing.
It is. It's a great dialogue. Kate and Daniel did amazing job installing this show.
It's true. It's true.
Thank you. Thank you. We have one more pairing that on this wall. I really want somebody to purchase these together.
Me too.
Yeah,
Because
why not?
I think that there's so many, similarities but differences too between your works, and it opens up all kind of different ways of thought about time, process. And I do feel like they both have kind of a meditative quality to them. Beth Derry writes beauties there, which I totally agree. Yes. They're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful pieces. And here, and the color, we try to be as accurate as we can in these recordings, but those flares coming out of Jaynie's pieces have this beautiful kind of orange kind of a pickup to them, right? Little
Yes.
rosy orange, which
Yes.
we really were looking at to do with the pairing of Joanne's, which has this like very nice radiant color fields going across them. So this pairing in particular for me was one of the most exciting to have in the exhibition because it goes from such a range of color and color temperature too, going from like the really warm to the extremely cold, which is challenging, to work with.
Go ahead.
It's interesting because, Joanne and I both use a lot of blue in our work. And, for me, blue is like the color of the ocean, the color of inland waters, the color of the sky. It means loyalty to me. It's meditative, it's calming. And I just feel like these two pieces together with the blue and the orange, which is a little bit like the complementary colors, there's something about these two together, and I really do feel like it's a great dialogue.
Mhm. Elizabeth Mead writes, stunning exhibition, thoughtfully and beautifully installed. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
So why don't we just back out so we can see again, like the whole exhibition together, because we just have 2 minutes left, guys. I think we crossed a lot of territory in discussing the process and reprocess as the title, and also the concept, of your working. Yeah. Really beautiful show, ladies.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and to everybody for sharing their time with us today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes, front room, you did a beautiful job with this show.
Thank you so much.
You've never looked better.